host Bhavi. I have a co-host Sunil with us, and we have our team Kumar and Priyanka as well, and Soumya supporting us. So let us begin with the session: Intellectual Property 101 from Awareness to Understanding. So let me just introduce about Indian startups to our audience. Indian Startup is a platform with 90,000 plus member community and a startup ecosystem bringing together entrepreneurs, investors, partners throughout India and of course across the globe to help them nurture, nourish and empower our new growing startups. Indian startup communities have several chapters in India and across the globe, and we organize various free sessions helping entrepreneurs, budding entrepreneurs to the community. We have our presence on various social media as well. You can follow us and have updates on upcoming events. So let me introduce our eminent speaker for today. We have Mr. Harsh Pangi. He is specialized in intellectual property and legal. He is registered to practice as a patent agent with Intellectual Property Office, India, and holds a Master of Science degree from Syracuse University, New York. He is founder of IP5, an IP consulting division under 252 clearly defined IP Consulting LLP, which is operational from Belgaum and Bangalore. We welcome you, Mr. Harsh.
Thank you,
Please
Bobby.
join us welcoming Mr. Harsh to the session. Before just starting the session, I would request participants in the end of the session, we will be having a Q&A session personally with the speaker. You can enroll through this payment link. It will also be given out in the chat. Thank you. And yes, Mr. Harsh, the whole session is yours. Please start the event. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. Thank you for the warm introduction. Uh, can you stop sharing the screen so that I
Yes,
can? Yeah,
sure.
thank you. Right. I hope everyone is able to see my screen.
Yes, Mr. Harsh, only if you can have audio a bit high.
Okay. Is this
The
better?
voice is a little bit low. Yeah,
Okay.
better.
Right.
Please go on.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this topic. So I'd like to begin my presentation with the definition of what intellectual property is. So creations of mind is typically referred to as intellectual property. So intellectual property is generally in intangible form. So when you procure a right or obtain a right for your intellectual property, it becomes tangible and it is referred to as intellectual property right. So what are the different types of intellectual property rights that one can procure? Broadly, intellectual property is classified into industrial property and copyright. So industrial property includes patent, trademark, industrial design, and geographical indication. I've included trade secret in the presentation because it is closely related to the concept of patents. So we'll now move into the presentation and learn about each type of intellectual property. So the first type of IP that we will learn about is a trade secret. So what is a trade secret? So any compilation of information that can give an economic advantage over your competitor is referred to as a trade secret. So for any compilation of information to qualify as a trade secret, the information should have an economic value. One, it should be known to a limited number of people. Two, and three, it should, the onus lies on the owner to keep the information a secret. So typical examples of trade secrets include R&D information, algorithms, uh, ingredients, financial records, designs, business processes, business methods that are used to execute the business. So the validity of a trade secret is perpetual. So to give you a classic example of a trade secret, you can refer to the uh, Coca-Cola syrup. So Coca-Cola syrup has been kept as a trade secret successfully for more than 40 odd years, 40, 50 years. So the way Coca-Cola is manufactured is the Coca-Cola syrup comes in containers to bottlers where aerated water is mixed and bottled and then supplied in the market. Trade secrets are hard to keep. As I mentioned, the onus lies on the owner to keep it as a secret. Historically, there have been instances where trade secrets have been stolen. So a very latest example that I can give you is of the Google's autonomous car driving project. So Google's engineer called Anthony Lewandowski stole the trade secrets related to Google's autonomous car driving, and he quit the company and tried joining Uber. And when Uber realized that Anthony had stolen the trade secrets from Google, they did not let him continue with his employment with Uber. Then he went out and tried to start his own company with the information that he had stolen. But apparently, when Google realized that the trade secrets had been stolen, they sued him, and this lawsuit went on for 5 years, and there was a verdict very recently this year. And Google, so Anthony Lewandowski, I think he owns $180 million to Google for stealing those trade secrets, and I think an imprisonment was also awarded. So, like I said, keeping trade secrets is highly challenging. So, next type of IP is a copyright. So, copyright protects an expression of an idea. So when I say an expression of an idea, it can be in the form of art, literature, music, videos, a composition, a book, or a poem. So the way you express or develop the content can be protected by seeking a copyright. Talking about the jurisdiction, so jurisdiction is nothing but the geographical region. So copyright can be registered in a specific jurisdiction with the respective intellectual property office. So if you want to seek protection and enforce your rights, you need to register with the intellectual property office of the specific jurisdiction. So the typical process in India is once you have the content, we will do an analysis of your content and recommend the classes. So there are various classes that are defined by the intellectual property office, and we'll have to select one or more classes depending on the type of content and register your copyright in those classes. So copyright by default gets created when the content is created. So you can claim your copyright by using the symbol C, your name, and the year of creation. So typical validity of copyright is the life of the author plus another 50 to 100 years. So this 50 to 100 years is totally dependent on the jurisdiction in which you're going to register your copyright. So certain countries in Europe allow about 60 to 80 years to up to 100 years of protection after the life of the author. The next type of intellectual property is a geographical indication. So geographical indication is nothing but it indicates a source or origin of product or a good. So it is generally applicable to agricultural, natural or manufactured products. So for example, all handicrafts and industrial goods may get a registration of a geographical indication. Some of the examples of geographical indication have Assam tea, Swiss watch, Cuban cigars, Parmesan cheese. So the validity of a geographical indication is about 10 years and it is renewable for another 10 years. So typically geographical indication, so when I say handicrafts or industrial goods, they are associated with certain attributes of the region. So for example, Swiss watch is one example that we can take and talk in detail. So the watch that is manufactured within the Switzerland or Swiss jurisdiction will have certain quality associated with it. So this quality is earmarked and can be indicated by the geographical indication. So the next type of intellectual property is an industrial design. So industrial design is nothing but it protects the ornamental or aesthetic nature of a product. So anything that is visible, which can be in the form of a shape or a pattern or arrangement of lines and colors, can be protected by an industrial design. So for seeking protection through industrial design, the functional aspects are not considered, and the requirement by the patent office is the design should be original, which is new or novel, and should not be disclosed in public or commercially exploited in public. So typical validity of industrial design is about 10 years and it can be renewed for another 5 years. So the next type of intellectual property is a trademark. So any logo, word or expression that uniquely identifies your company, your service or your product is referred to as a trademark. So trademark it is mandatory to register the trademark for enforceability. Again, trademark is a jurisdictional right, which means that if you register for a trademark in India, you will get protection only in India. And if you register the trademark in other countries, accordingly, you will get protection in other countries. So the typical process is for registration of trademark in India is you provide us with the description of your product or your business, and then we do a search. So there is a classification defined by World Intellectual Property Organization. So it's a goods and service classification of 45 classes. So based on the description that you provide, we take the keywords and do the search and identify the classes in which your business or your product falls, and we recommend you to file or protect your trademark in those classes. So typical registration. So once we have identified the classes, we will reach out and inform you and initiate the process of registration. So once you file for an application, you can use the symbol TM, and once the examination process is complete, you can typically use the logo R with a circle to indicate that the trademark has been registered. So the validity of registration is for 10 years and it is renewable perpetually every 10 years. So the next type of IP is a patent. So what is a patent? A patent is an exclusive right to a technical solution for a problem. So what is this exclusive right? So this exclusive right that you get when a patent gets granted is you can exclude others from making, using, selling, offering to sell, or importing your patented invention. So it gives you the right to exclude others from making, using, selling, offering to sell, and importing the patented invention. So the term of the patent is for 20 years from the date of filing. Patent rights are again jurisdictional. So when I say jurisdictional, there is nothing called as a global patent. So I come across a lot of people who come up with a question of saying that I want to register a global patent. There is nothing called a global patent, but there is a process through which you can actually register the patent in multiple countries through a single application, which is called as a patent cooperation treaty. So you can file what is known as an international application in a single office. So India is now a WIPO recognized PCT office where you can file PCT applications. So you can file one single application using this treaty and choose the countries in which you need protection. So once you choose the countries in which you need protection, you will have to pay the fees, the search and examination fees of those respective countries. So coming back to jurisdiction, if you want to, let's say if you want protection of your patent in India, then you register it in India. And if you are looking at a global footprint, maybe a couple of countries like say Germany and Europe and US and Canada and North America, then you can register or you can file for patents in those jurisdictions. So like I said, I earlier talked about the patent cooperation treaty where you can make a single application and choose the countries in which you can seek protection. The other convention is referred to as the Paris Convention, which allows you to file the patent application in the countries of your choice within 12 months of your first filing. So for example, you have filed a patent application in India, let's say tomorrow, which is September 5th, 2020. So you have an option of filing your patent application in other countries on or before September 5th, 2021. So coming to the utility patent. So we spoke about the industrial design, which is nothing but it is also referred to as design patents. So when it comes to functional aspects, we file what is called as a utility patent. Now there are two types of utility patents that one can file. So the first type of utility patent is referred to as a provisional patent application. So provisional patent application is generally recommended to file if your product or process is in the ideation stage. So if the crux of the invention is ready and you are looking to experiment with features or looking to add additional features, you can go ahead and file a provisional application. So what happens when you file a provisional patent application? You secure a filing date. So for any type of IP, securing the filing date is important because the first applicant or the first individual who files for a patent application gets the rights. So provisional patent is a good tool that one can use to get this priority date or filing date. Now, provisional patent is never examined. It is never published. It only is used to get a filing date. Now, provisional patent allows you to a window of 12 months before which you need to file what is known as a complete application or a non-provisional application. So the complete application is the one that would be examined and matures into a granted patent. So typically you will get 12 months upon filing the provisional patent application, before which you need to file a complete or a non-provisional patent application. So the advantage of provisional application is you can, like I said, when you're filing the complete application, you can take priority to the provisional patent application, and you will get the same filing date as the provisional patent application. So for example, let's say we file the provisional patent application tomorrow, which is September 5th, 2020. So you will have a window of filing the complete application on or before September 5th, 2021. Now, let's say your competitor or someone that you spoke to stole this idea and filed for a complete application in between this period, between September 5th, 2020 and September 5th, 2021. Even if they file a complete application, since you have already filed a provisional patent application, if you follow it up with a complete patent application, your application will have priority or will precede over the filing of your competitor. So that is the advantage that the provisional patent application will give you.
Harsh, hi. I'll just interrupt you. Maybe not interruption, but if you can go back to your previous slide, I can see, yeah, it's very good differentiation on provisional and complete. So can we understand what are the minimum requirements of the provisional filing? As you mentioned, there is a period of 12 months before you go for a complete. So can you, in short, explain what are the minimum requirements for provisional filing?
So minimum requirement is as long as you have a tangible idea and tangible manifestation of an idea. So when I say tangible manifestation, so you have an idea and there is an input to your idea. Your idea is doing some kind of transformation, it is either processing the data or doing some kind of data processing and producing an output. So which is again tangible, that is sufficient for us to go ahead and file a provisional patent application.
Okay, great. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So moving on to the next slide, which talks about what is patentable, what is not patentable, and how your idea or creation of mind is classified when it comes to a patent. So broadly, your idea should fall into one of the categories of a product or a process or an article of manufacture or a composition of matter or improvements of any of these. So process, product, I think people are familiar with a lot of products. So iPhone is a product, and iPhone will have several patents, which may include design and functional utility patents filed around an iPhone. So talking about the process, so to give you a classic example of a process is your shopping experience on Amazon. So when you go to Amazon.in or Amazon.com and search for a product and you decide to buy it, so you select the product and then you add to cart, and then you check it out, and then go to the page where you select an address, and then you select a payment method and complete the transaction. So that is a typical process that can be patented. So by the way, Amazon has already a patent on this. just in case if you're curious to know, Amazon also has a patent for one click, where one click of button. So this one click feature is only on Amazon.com in the US. So the Amazon, the one click feature, what it does is the steps that I spoke previously, the process of you adding the product to the cart and selecting the address and selecting the payment method and checking out and completing the transaction. So one click does all of that at a click of a button. So Amazon already has a patent on this. So for your idea to be patentable, it should the patent offices in fact across the world have defined three broad requirements. First thing is novelty, or it should be new. So your idea should be new. Second, it should have an inventive step. So it's referred to as inventive step in India. It's referred to as a technical effect or technical advancement in Europe, and is referred to as obviousness in the US. And third is the utility. So primarily, it has to meet these three requirements for it to qualify for examination. So what is not patentable? So laws of nature and abstract ideas, traditional knowledges, atomic energy, or anything that is related to defense. So anything publicly known worldwide. Software and algorithms per se are not patentable. Now, many times I get this question saying that I have a software application, I have a software algorithm. Is that patentable? So my answer is it totally depends, and it depends on various factors. If your software application has functional aspects that meet the criteria of novelty, of inventive step, or technical effect, or technical advancement, and your software application has a utility. So when I say utility, it should provide some functionality which should be useful to the end user.
Okay, sorry, continue. I'll
Yeah.
ask one question after this.
Yeah, please go on. Go ahead.
So when we talk about non-patentable, even we have heard that technologies are also not patentable. Is it true? We cannot patent the technology. Maybe we can patent the procedure or protocol, different testing of that technology, but not the technology as a whole. Similar to the software. Is it true?
So when you're talking about technology, where does it fall? You tell me. Is it a product? Is it a process? Is it an article of manufacture or a composition of matter? Does it fall into one of those categories?
So, for example, if we take products,
right?
So yeah, if a product has to be built upon a technology based on some technology, so
Right.
can we patent that existing technology?
See, technology is only the implementation part. Okay. Let's say now, actually it's a very good question, and thank you for bringing this up. So when it comes to software applications, or mobile applications, or any kind of application that runs on a computer, now the way you implement it is independent of the patenting process. So patent office says that your idea should categorically fit into one of these, which is a product process, an article of manufacture, or composition of matter, or any improvements of these. And it should meet the criteria of novelty, inventive step, and utility. Now, coming to the implementation part, see, let me take the example of Amazon itself. So Amazon, you can access through a web browser, and you can access it through a application, a mobile application, right?
True.
Now, mobile application is again, you can have the app installed on an iOS platform. You can have the app installed on an Android platform, and you can have it installed on a Windows platform, and you can access it through the web. So all of this. So when I say the application is independent of the way it is implemented, the way the end user is consuming it, right? The way it is
Mm-hmm.
implemented. The patenting process is independent of that. Patent office will look only at the functional aspects of your software or algorithm. They will
Mm-hmm.
not look at the way you're implemented, whether you have implemented it or not, whether you have reduced to practice or not. So I'll be covering those aspects in the subsequent slide
Mm-hmm.
in the myths section. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you for answering. We do have many questions from participants as well, but let us take it at the end of the session so we can have preserve some time for them as well.
Sure, sure. I'd be happy to answer
Please continue.
any
Yeah.
questions. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, software and algorithms per se are not patentable. Like I said, it is independent of the way you implement it, and we as in the patent office will look only at the functional aspects of the software application or the algorithms. So with that, we move to the next slide of myths. So some of the common myths around filing IP or mostly around patents is the ideas must be groundbreaking. This is not true. Like I said initially, uh, so as long as your ideas have a tangible manifestation, so you have an input and your idea can do some kind of transformation or data processing, and it produces an output, and the output has a utility, it is good enough. So when I say this transformation or processing, it is this this transformation or data processing is evaluated against the patentability criteria of novelty, one, technical effect or any improvement of the existing technical effect, and third is the utility aspect, which is the output of the idea upon transformation, whether the output that is produced will have certain kind of utility or not. Second myth is working prototype or proof of concept is needed. Again, this is not true. Uh, just that a tangible manifestation of idea. Again, I would want to go back and repeat on the same thing. So as long as you have something tangible produced from your idea that has a specific utility, that can be patented. The third myth is every innovation is patentable. This is very subjective, and I would say it depends on case to case basis. So to give you a very simple example of an innovation is an iPhone. So if you go back and look the video of launch of iPhone in 2007 by Steve Jobs. So what did he do? When he launched iPhone, there was a phone in the market, there was a browser in the market, and there was iPod, which was a music player in the market. So what did Steve Jobs do? He combined all these into one product, which he called it as an iPhone. So that is the simplest example of an innovation. So nowadays or historically, whatever innovation has happened is generally through combination of various solutions. It can be existing, it can be new. So the reason I say it depends on case to case basis is if if there is one element in the combination which is, let's say, meets the criteria of novelty or is new, or it meets the criteria of technical advancement or has an inventive step, or is an improvement of existing technical step, then that can be patentable. So when it comes to innovation, the typically how I evaluate it is I break up the innovation into independent solutions and see if those solutions are there, uh, irrespective of their end applications. And when I say irrespective of their end application, uh, the utility is a requirement for patentability, but you will not get a patent for just utility. So you cannot say that, I have a let's say, to give you a classic example, uh, let's say you have developed a camera, and camera has various applications. So you cannot get patents for those various applications. But if your camera has something unique, something special, some feature that is unique, has a technical advancement over the existing cameras, then yes, that can stand out, and you can get a patent for that. So the fourth type of myth is this is not in India, but it exists elsewhere in the world. So it is not patentable. This is very common. This is the common question that I receive from all the people I have worked, right from students to researchers to entrepreneurs to scientists. They say that, I saw this there, and it's not there in India, it's not there in my street, it's not there in my state. Can I get a patent for it? And my answer is no, you cannot get a patent for it, because it doesn't meet the criteria of novelty. When I say novelty, it should be new in the entire world. And even if it's not new in the entire world, if the inventive step or the technical advancement or the technical effect is so significant that it can encompass the novelty aspect, then it is patentable. So the fifth myth is I will wait until. Yeah, this is very, very common. I mean, I have met a lot of people in the industry in last 15 years of me working, in this field. People just wait till eternity to file a patent application, and there are various reasons. They want to see if they are going to be successful in life. They want to see if their business is going to pick up at all and do well. So, see, those criterias do not matter when it comes to filing a patent application, because, like I said, the race to the patent office is the one who files first. So let's say you have a product or a business service which is commercially successful, but you have not timely protected it, and somebody else uh, has has visited you and saw this and found out that there is no patent on this. They can go ahead and file a patent application and sue you and get you out of your business. So I am currently participating in one of such IP litigation cases in Bangalore. So there is a company, I don't want to disclose confidential information, including the name of the company and all. So we filed a patent application back in 2018. So the company went and gave a demonstration of the product, and the demo was covered under NDA. So they gave a demo to the customer, and the customer rejected, saying that the features of the product are not useful. And subsequently, the customer built a product, identical product with the same features. So, and posted it on their website. So the moment my client realized that this has happened, he reached out to me and asked, what is that we can do? So I said, we can initiate a legal process to get an injunction. Injunction is nothing but to stop the person from further marketing and selling the product. So we just started that process. We have lawyers on board who take care of such litigations. So please do not wait. So the next slide is going to talk about that, when to protect your IP, and the time is now. The best time is now. So the more you delay, the probability of you losing the IP is going to only increase. So delay is directly proportional to the probability of you losing the IP. So generally, it is recommended to protect your IP before making pitches to your investors or prospective customers. So the next slide will talk about why do we need to actually protect the IP. So it has various advantages. For example, it gives you an edge over your competition. It will help you to secure your market, only more advantage and recognition. it opens up opportunities for business and research collaborations. So historically, I've seen that companies who have an active patent portfolio and are doing active research, they receive grants from various institutes, from various bodies to support research and business activities. And it also demonstrates competencies and your ability to solve problems. This is very important. So the next slide will continue talking about why to protect IP. So it will help you to strengthen or craft a strategy for your business and for your revenue. So an IP, you can leverage on IP in different ways. It can act in a defensive mode where you can protect your invention, your idea from your competitors. Offensive is again, you can, the example that I gave you, someone, stole the idea, tried to build it. Now, because we have filed IP for it, you can go offensive, you can go and sue them. And third is the commercial. So when I'm talking about the commercial aspects, it refers to licensing. So historically, there have been enough examples and a lot of companies like Microsoft, Qualcomm, Google, all Facebook, everyone invests a lot of money in R&D in generating IP. And once these IP are generated, they are licensed. So just to give you an example, Microsoft, although has nothing to do with Android, but has IP in the Android space. And the last 10 years, they were able to license that IP and generate up to $2 billion. I think that is the number that they were able to generate last year through licensing. Qualcomm is another classic example, which totally depends on licensing revenue. So Qualcomm generates close to $1.2 billion every quarter, not every year, every quarter, only through licensing their IP. So these are two very good examples. Another example that I can give you is the Google acquisition of Motorola. So Google actually acquired Motorola for their patents, not for their business, not for their handset, but for the portfolio that they had. So Motorola, when they were acquired, they had 17,000 granted patents and some 7,500 pending applications. And Google, bought Motorola for about $12.5 billion. They retained all the IP and then sold off the handset division to Lenovo. Lot of industry experts said that it was a loss to Google, that they paid 12.5 billion and sold it for only 3 billion. The handset division was sold for 3 billion, but Android, all the IP has been was retained by Google, and Google has been able to leverage on that IP all through these years. So next is, it will help you to attract investments. Yeah, I work closely with a lot of venture capitalists who take a close look at your IP portfolio. I do a lot of analysis. So I get requests from various venture capitalists to do an existing, existing analysis of the portfolios. So there are companies who have already, built their IP, and the VCs who are interested in investing, and they reach out to me requesting, please take a look whether the portfolio is good and the product has a future, and I do an evaluation from IP perspective and give them my inputs. And this helps in investments. So the last one, which is very, very important, lifeline, the value of death in the innovation. So I think COVID-19 is a very classic and perfect example. We've seen how businesses have shut down overnight, companies, going out of businesses and shutting down overnight. So historically, this has happened. So if you go through the recession period that happened back in 2001, 2008, 9, many companies like, Nortel Networks, Nokia and all survived through this valley of death of recession just because they had patent portfolios that they could license and make money. So that is what IP can do for you. So the next slide talks about some do's. Best practices is to seek protection as soon as possible. So please do not wait till you become rich, or till your father-in-law gives you a house, or till your mother-in-law gives you a phone. All those things don't matter when it comes to IP. Best practice is to seek protection as soon as possible. Try to have your disclosures, pitches covered by NDAs. Seek value. This is something I pitch and propagate and practice. What and when you sow, right? Sow and then you shall reap. So try to seek value, try to have a purpose, try to have a strategy for filing IP. Don't treat it like an accessory, like a fashion accessory or a necessity. Like human beings today, they have a lifestyle. They have a car, they have a cell phone, they have a house, and just because you're a startup or a company, don't treat it. Having a patent is something which will look very cool. You can have patents that are very cool, but if they do not have any value, then they'll always remain there. They'll always have that cooling effect, and nothing else happens. So you are actually not able to leverage if there is no value in the IP. Another thing that I would like to discuss about is try to be legally compliant, especially when you're using your open source software. So this is going to be industry standard in a few years. So all the open source software be it packages, snippets, libraries, they are attached to licenses, and these licenses can be permissive or restrictive. So we'll have to take a closer look at the terms of the license to determine whether it is permissive, restrictive. So certain types of licenses will require you to open up your IP if you integrate those open source libraries or codes without the knowledge of the license. So try to be careful going forward, because already there is a consortium formed by Google, Apple, Qualcomm, SAP. So they are trying to standardize this. So it will become a worldwide industry standard where all open source software packages, libraries, snippets are going to be observed for legal compliance. So some of the don'ts include: don't Google or make up or design around something. This is very common. I see that somebody sees an idea or sees something online, or maybe in a movie or in some other country when they are visiting, and they try to come up with identical or some design around and try to file a patent for it. 9 out of 10 times you will not get it through, because if there is something out there, then there are something called as embodiments which are covered in the patent application. So the embodiments would be generally disclosed in those patent applications. Don't do it yourself. The Jugaad way will not work, because patent applications have to be compliant with the acts and rules. So just to give you an example, there has the Indian Patent Office had about 2,000 patents were granted last year. And if we go back in time, so maybe 3 years or 4 years before, when these patent applications were actually filed, there were close to 12,000 applications that were filed, but only 2,000 got granted. And although the reasons were not explicitly cited, but I had access to the patent office website, and I did some kind of analysis and due diligence, and found out that these most of the patent cases that were patent applications that were refused were because they did not meet the requirements prescribed by the patent acts or the rules. So don't try to read up applications and write it by yourself. You will not get it through. So don't publish, especially in journals, blogs, or publicly disclose. This is very important because for you, before you even go and start publishing your research in journals, it is generally recommended to file at least a provisional patent application, and then which will give you a window of 12 months, and you can take a call within those 12 months whether you want to pursue a filing a complete application or not. And last is don't stop thinking, solving problems, innovating and inventing. With that, I would like to conclude my presentation and would like to take up questions.
Thank you, Harsh. And yes, I truly agree with you. We people have a habit of Googling everything. So, and yes, Indians are good at jugaad. So, truly recommended. We should avoid doing all these hands-on things and should refer and take advice from experts for going ahead with our start of work or anything legal things we are filing. Truly, I believe in. Thank you, Harsh, for wonderful insight on the IP side. So we'll next move ahead taking questions. We have overwhelming response from our participants. We'll take questions from them one by one. I would always also request participants if they have many more questions, please raise your hand. I would also allow them to speak directly to Harsh. So let me take first few questions which are in chat, Harsh.
Mhm.
Okay, so I have a question from Dhananjay and Bala about copyright. Yes, you mentioned in early slides about the copyright. So the question from Dhananjay is, can we copyright car design? And Bala wants to know what are the organizations involved in copywriting and how much does it cost to carry out copyrights?
Design of a car is not copyrightable. It falls under the category of a industrial design. Like I said, the shape, pattern, arrangement of lines or colors or combination is what you can protect. So you can file a design patent for a car. About the question related to copyright, what organizations are involved? Is he referring to the patent office, or is the question referring to the practitioner? So if it is referring to the practitioner, I provide copyright registration services, and it typically depends on case-to-case basis. So we don't have flat charges depending on what has to be copyrighted. For example, so when you're trying to, let's go to the slide of copyright. So there are various categories in which your content may file. So software code has a different requirement. You need to submit the entire code in floppies and CD drives, and then the process is quite exhaustive. Likewise for the database design. So case to case basis, depending on the content, the cost will vary. So you can get in touch with me and we can do an further investigation, and I can provide you more information and the cost involved for registration of copyright.
Okay, great. So Bala, you can get in touch with Harsh for one-on-one sessions, or you may consult us for more questions you want to ask to Harsh. Please get in touch. Okay, so we'll take up another question. We have a question from Nikita Chawla. Okay, she has noticed a very tiny thing on your slide. She said she's asking that you have a symbol C on the bottom right corner of the PPT. So is it the PPT registered, or can everyone use this symbol, or how to test its authenticity?
So I have prepared those slides. So that is the reason I have put the copyright symbol along with my brand name and the year of creation. Now I have not registered it, but I can give you the permission to use it or distribute it. So it is up to me, right? And the slide does not have any confidential information. All this information you can Google up and read about it. All of it is in the public domain or it's publicly accessible. But the way I have represented it in my slides gives me the authority to put a C symbol, a copyright symbol, the way I'm representing it, right? Gives me the authority to put a copyright symbol. But as far as the question is concerned, you're free to use it and distribute it as you like.
So Nikita, you can use this PPT, but as far as the using a symbol is concerned, you need to it's a copyright symbol and you need to register, and then only you can use the symbol, right, Harsh?
If I register the slide, if I register the
Can a common
presentation,
person use it?
yeah. See, anyone who creates content can use it. So, like
Yes.
I said, see, copyright gets created the moment you create content, right? By default, you get a copyright. So even let's say, you know, uh, you write a sentence in English, right? You can claim copyright on that. Now you can write the same sentence in 10 different ways, right? You can claim. So what are you actually doing? You're changing the way you're expressing. So when what I said, copyright protects the expression of an idea. So with every change in the way you write, the way you're expressing gets changed. So each of that is copyrightable. So
Okay.
by default, you get a copyright, but for you to get protection or enforce it, say for example, like a patent. So unless you register a patent, you cannot go and sue anyone. Same thing holds good for copyright. So if you register for copyright, only then it is enforceable. If you don't register, then it cannot be enforced. It is open. It is up to the author, original author. He can give you rights to copy or distribute.
Okay, great. Hope Nikita, your question, you got the answer to your question. If not, you can unmute yourself and also ask. Meanwhile,
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
okay.
yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Nikita. Okay, I'll go ahead to the next question from Chandrasekhar. His question is it a mandatory to file patent internationally? Can we file for protection after getting approval in India?
Uh, First question, is it mandatory? No, it is not mandatory. It totally depends on your business strategy. So let's say you have businesses across the globe, let's say only in two countries, for example, let's say India and the US. It is advisable for you to file the patent in India and US. The second question, uh, after getting a grant, no. Like I said, you have only a 12-month window before which you can file the patent application anywhere in the world. So we talked about the Paris Convention, right? Let me go to that slide. So we talked about the two treaties. One is the Paris Convention, and the second is the Patent Cooperation Treaty. So Patent Cooperation Treaty allows you to file in any number of countries using a single application. Paris Convention allows you to file the patent application within 12 months of first filing. So you cannot wait for the patent to be granted in one country and then go and file in another country. So if you file in India, let's say tomorrow, you will have a window of 12 months before which you can file anywhere in the world.
Okay, great. He also have another question. Does the provision patent requires complete list of claims and other details?
No, provisional has no formal requirements. Claims are generally not filed in a provisional patent application. Like I said, as long as the crux of the idea is ready and you have a few drawings, that is good enough for us to go ahead and file the provisional patent application.
Okay, so there is no such pattern we need to follow. It can be just an abstract kind of thing, or is there any formal details we need to follow while filing it?
You just cannot file an abstract. You will
Mm-hmm.
need to provide details and
Mm-hmm.
all. So like I said, at the time of filing provisional, whatever details you have in the form of pictures, drawings, in the form of subject matter, descriptions, all of that has to be filed in the provisional patent application.
Okay, thanks. So we have a couple of questions on cost of maintenance and of IPR and provisional patent. I would suggest we can get you connected to the speaker directly, right, Harsh?
Yes, yes,
For cost part. Yeah.
yes. Yeah. It's a
Okay,
case to
well,
case basis. So please get in touch with me and I will do an
yes.
evaluation and tell you.
So yeah, participants, regarding the cost, please consult us after the session. We'll try to connect you with Harsh with the same. Yeah. Thanks. So next question we have from Suresh Nair. He's saying when you say software and algorithms as not patentable, you mean publicly known and worldwide ones.
No, I didn't get that. Can you
So
repeat?
Suresh, can you unmute yourself and ask the question?
Yeah, hi Harsh. My question is, I saw that in a non-patentable, you mentioned software and algorithms,
Right.
and you did give some background about it. I mean, I think if it is not specific utility or innovation, then it is not considered, right? I mean, there are some special purpose that I'm driving through an algorithm. So you mean to say the algorithms are never patentable, or when they serve a utility or a novelty, then it is patentable?
See, algorithm, if you look at the definition, software and algorithm per se. Now, per se is a legal term and per se means by themselves. So when I
Okay.
say an algorithm by itself is not patentable, it means that it can't be a standalone sequence of code or sequence of steps without any usefulness, without any inventive step, without any novelty, then it cannot meet the criteria of patentability. But if you can embody the algorithm, let's say in an application, for example. So I
Mm-hmm.
can give you an example of a search algorithm. Let's take the simplest example of a search algorithm. So when you search for a product within Amazon itself, there is a search algorithm that runs behind, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that search algorithm will execute a sequence of steps. Now, what that search algorithm is doing, it is taking an input, executing a search. And when I say executing a search, it is executing a sequence of steps. And then
Mm-hmm.
it is coming up with results and displaying those results.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that algorithm is doing something, right? It is tangible. It has maybe some kind of inventive step. Maybe it is very efficient. The way it searches is different from the way other search algorithms work.
Mm-hmm.
So that aspect of the search is patentable. But if you only take the algorithm and say this algorithm will do a fast search without explicitly giving the details of how the fastness can be achieved or how the speed can be
Okay.
achieved, then it is not
Okay.
patentable. Yeah.
Understood. Understood.
Yeah.
And when two parties are getting into a direct contract or like a NDA, those type of things, how does even even if they are not patented, how does that the trade secret or the the savviness of the IP is being protected even without any patents? I mean, is it still protected, or they still need to back themselves with a patent on those things?
Generally recommended to file. See, NDA, you sign it in good faith, right? Uh, I gave you an example of one of my client who signed an NDA and gave a demo, and eventually the idea was stolen and new product was built around it, right? So the
Correct. Correct.
good faith of trust was breached. So that is why my client got mad and now he's behind the customer and ready to sue
Okay.
him. Yeah.
Yeah,
So if you
because
have a
the recent case of this Epic Systems claiming on TCS, right? That was very interesting to me. I was thinking that, they saying, I hope you are aware of it. I mean, where Epic System got some, millions of dollars from TCS because they stole some trade secrets, right? I
Yes,
mean,
yes, yes. Yes, I read about
Uh,
it.
so
Hi Suresh, I would like to interrupt you. Sorry. Can for the prolonged discussions we can arrange for a session. I just if you have
okay,
straightforward
yeah,
questions,
sorry,
please do ask. For prolonged
yeah,
discussion, we'll
okay,
arrange you a session.
Yeah. You
okay,
can
okay.
connect with me, Suresh, and we can.
Sure, Harsh, I will do that.
Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for the time.
So we have a next interesting question from Narayan Sati. He asks that he has made a product and then he took patent rights, and then again he did some kind of advancement to the product. So the question is, after the product, does he have to apply for another patent rights, or he can take that patent earlier patent right ahead? Are there any advancement or any changes need to be done in the rights?
Very good question, and thank you for asking that. So there is a provision in the Indian Patent Office. So this happens only if your original patent application is not granted. So let's say you have filed a patent application, and your application is 2 years into the examination process, and still the patent has not been granted, and you come up with improvements. There is something called as patent of edition that you can file. You can get priority to the original filed application except the new matter. So whatever improvements you have done, you will get protection for that only with a new date. So all the old matter or the old features are protected with the old filing date, and the new matter and the new features would be protected with the new filing date. So only if it is not granted, you can file a patent of edition. If it is already granted, then you will have to file a new application.
Oh, great. So the new application will be part of the initial product itself, or it will be altogether a different application in continuity of the previous one?
No, it won't continue. Like I said, it won't continue. It won't relate. It would be filed as a separate new
Separate
application.
one. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so we have one basic question. So we have it from Prachi Jagtap. What is the basic difference between trademark and IP?
Trademark and IP.
Yeah.
Trademark is a IP. It is a type of IP.
So it's a type of IP. Yes, we have
Yeah.
copyrights, we have
Yeah,
trademarks, and
we spoke about it in the first slide, right?
yes.
See, because your mind is able to have, or it is able to conceive different types of ideas or different types of creations, which is why you have different types of intellectual property. So all that you are protecting, right? Like I said, patent will protect ideas, which may categorically fall into product, process, or article of manufacture, or composition of matter or improvement. Copyright will protect expression of an idea. Design patent will protect a design, shape, or pattern, right? Likewise, trademark will protect your trade name or your logo or expression. So it is a type of IP.
Okay, thank you. So we have another question from Rochelle Carvalho. It says, how can I use patent database to validate possible and demand scientific research and market analysis? Can we unmute, Rochelle, you can unmute yourself and ask the question maybe.
Yeah, sure. Hi, Harsh. So the question I have relates to basically I'm into biotechnology field and I'm trying to understand the market analysis for certain applications. Can patent databases really help with this aspect?
Yes, it can help. So we can have an offline discussion on this, because it is going to be a prolonged discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, you can probably connect and we can have a. I can give you inputs on that.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, sir.
Sure.
Thank you, Rashid. Okay. So Vivek Parma wants to ask, we have filed filed both in domestic and international patent. Both are different.
Mhm.
So maybe Vivek, you can unmute yourself and ask the question. Maybe he want to ask that do we have to file differently to domestic and internationally, and both patents will be like differently acceptable, or they will be accepted as one patent only?
Same application is typically filed. If you're filing internationally, there's only one application that would be filed in all jurisdictions. So if you're filed different applications, I'm not sure what those different applications are referring to. Probably I'll have to take a closer look at the content of the patent application and then advise you.
Okay.
So yeah, you can get in touch with me if you want analysis to be done.
Okay, Vivek, you can get in touch with Harsh later. We have Yogeshwari Devraj. Can you unmute and ask your question? She has a big question, I guess.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, Harsh. I'm a preschool owner, and we have registered our preschool in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. So we have applied for trademark, and it's still pending. The case is still pending against the word, but we have been approved for the logo. But can we use the copyright symbols in our workbooks? But the worksheets are based on various sources from internet as well as some of the books, because like the preschool, we have have the common types of worksheets, right? Like it's very common to many preschools. So we do the copyrights symbol which is used in the worksheet. Is it valid if we use the copyright symbol in our workbooks and in our social media pictures?
Yeah, it is valid. See, you can protect. See, only you cannot enforce it. It is valid, but if somebody copies or copies and modifies the content, right? So when I say, I gave you an example of so copyright protects expression of an idea. So if you write a sentence in one way and I write the same sentence in another way, so you have copyright over your first sentence. I have my copyright over the way I have written it. Although I have the meaning conveyed may be same, but the way I am representing or rewording the sentence will give me the rights. But now, if you really want to protect the content, let's say it's a book or some content that needs protection, then I would highly recommend you to register it with the patent office or the intellectual property office so that you get the right protection.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Harsh.
Yeah.
Thank you, Yogeshwari. Okay, so we have another question which asks, is there any way to fast track a patent granting? So is there any way where we can speeden up the process of patenting?
Yes, there are various initiatives or mechanisms by different patent offices. So if you are willing to pay additional fees, examination fees, you can expedite the prosecution. So typically, grant of the patent takes from 3 to 5 years if you go through a normal examination track. And if you go through an expedited examination track, it will be done in 1 to 2 years. So historically in India, the fastest patent that has been granted is in 14 months. So from the date of filing, within 14 months, the patent was granted.
Okay, great. So Navneet has a question. Navneet, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question regarding the source code of a game? Navneet, are you there?
What is the question? Does he want to know whether it can be patented or copyrighted?
So he wants to use a code from already registered. Let me see first he's there or no. Okay, I'll ask this question. So he says that if I use the source code of a game which has IP protection in US,
Mhm.
Will it be patented if he replicates it with a different color or size of characters and launch it in India?
No, you cannot do it. So if they are filed, typically games are filed across the world, as far as my understanding goes. So because the games are going to be released in different jurisdictions, right? So typically these companies will try to file patent applications and protect their source code through copyright in various countries. You just cannot change the color and get protection for that.
Okay. So Shailendra has a very, question where he wants to know how his patents are protected. So he asks that, isn't it possible that my patent information may be stolen from the patent office? So,
Patents are so patent applications are published, so there is no need to steal. They
okay.
are publicly accessible.
Yeah, true.
So that is what you get, the protection. So the monopoly that you get, right, is in exchange for publishing your information. Otherwise, you can keep that information as trade secret. But if your trade secret is stolen and uh, there is, there is no premise that you can establish that it was your trade secret that you tried to keep, secret, then you will lose it. Patent, on the other hand, will give you that protection by in exchange to publication, in exchange to the publication or publicly giving out that information.
Yes, yes. So it's a publicly available network kind of thing. So where it's protected fully
Yes.
wherever you apply. Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks. So Tanumai has a question. It's regarding infringements of any patent right. So if he records a live performance on camera and upload it on YouTube, then is he breaking any copyright rules, or how can he avoid legal actions against it? So nowadays people are doing a lot on YouTube.
So it totally depends on the terms and conditions of YouTube. One, second, if you're going to, let's say, a live concert, the uh, if let's say Brian Adams is doing a live show in your city and you go and capture it on your phone, probably he may not have any issues. But if it is someone, budding and he wants to protect, he may have entered into some kind of agreement with the event host or the organizers. And when you record and upload it on YouTube, the onus lies on the organizer to keep a track of such information, and there may be some copyright violations. So it typically depends on the agreements between the stars or performers and the event organizers.
So you need to be aware of doing such things before getting into all the legality. Yeah. So I would now request the participants to unmute themselves and ask the question directly to Harsh.
Hi, Arch. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Just a minute. So people, you can just raise your hand. So I'll call out the names and one by one you can start. So right now, Dhananjay, of course, you can start.
Hi. Yeah. So my question is, I have used the Qualcomm products. So I wanted to understand about the licensing part. So what are the common pitfalls or licensing mistakes any startups do, and how to determine the price of a licensing of any product? So is there any high level thing that we should consider?
There is no template or set rules. It depends on case to case basis. And when you're saying you have, excuse me, you have used Qualcomm products, I don't know what you mean. Have you directly licensed it or just bought a chip and using it? So I don't have that information, so I won't be able to advise you. So if you can provide that information, probably yes, I can.
It was a software license.
You had procured that license?
Yes.
Okay.
So like that was just an example, but I wanted to make our own software and license it to someone else. In that case, like what should be the pricing I should put for the license, or and what is the process to provide a license to any customers or any other getting into the production?
Got it. Okay. So there is no fixed cost. It totally depends on what your software is doing. If it is a software application, I presume what is the utility of that application? What is your market share? So many of those factors are totally dependent on the nature of your business and the value attached to that software. So there is no fixed template or fixed cost that you know.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
Uh, Hi, I have a question actually. Like I have read somewhere that for the patent charges, whatever we pay, like Indian government does some reimbursement of some charges for the startups.
Mhm.
So is it true? And if so, how to apply?
There is a process. Yes, it is true. So if you are a MSME qualified as a MSME, if you have a MSME certificate or a startup certificate, then there are schemes launched by the government where you can get some reimbursement on the patenting cost. Maybe you can get in touch with me. I'll share the links, and
Sure,
probably we can take the discussion ahead from there.
sure, sure. Thank you so much, Harsh.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? Any more questions?
Uh, Hi, Harsh. This is Subhankar here.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I have a question like, how do I know whether my idea or design is worth filing a patent or not?
So when you come, typically when you approach us, we will take a look at the idea. We'll do a preliminary analysis and advise you whether to do a search or not. So uh, typically the search is done in public databases and patent databases that are accessible worldwide. So we'll do a search on the concept and we'll tell you what already exists out there in the world, and you can take a call. So based on that, you can take a call whether you want to go ahead and file the patent application or not.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Uh, so I have one question, like how important it is to select a right patent attorney. Like patent attorney plays an important role in filing a patent. So how, like, is there any prerequisite checks for any clients to need to go before considering among multiple patent attorney?
So very good question, and thank you for asking that. First is you need to check whether the attorney is a registered agent or not. So for anyone to file a patent application with the Indian Patent Office, you need to be registered to practice with the Patent Office. So there is an exam for that, and there are a few requirements, and you need to meet those requirements to take that exam. Second requirement is the experience and the expertise the attorney has. So if you are, let's say, product or idea is in emerging or high tech domain like AI/ML, you may want to work with a person who has either worked in the industry and come into this field, or has extensive knowledge and experience dealing with such applications, because uh, typically in my experience, so the way I am building my firm, I will tell you the strategy. I do not want to comment on the way others are doing business. out there. The way I am doing it is I have worked in the industry for a few years, for 3 or 4 years. That is, I worked in Infosys, and then I have worked in 3G, 4G technologies. So, and also I have a master's in electrical engineering. So I have a better grasp of the technical concepts across many domains. So I am handling all high tech, emerging tech, software, communication, wireless related. There's another team member who is specialized in mechanical. So he takes care of mechanical engineering, robotics, and allied fields. There's another. So again, this person is he's done his masters from Germany. There's another person who's done her PhD from the US. So she's done her PhD in polymer materials from Virginia Polytechnic. So she takes care of nanotechnology, nanomaterials, and material engineering related applications. So generally highly recommended to go with someone who has worked in the industry and then moved on to this field, because they will have a better understanding of the problem and the solution than non-tech background person.
Yes. Is there any registration or something that we should ask someone?
So
Sorry.
Dhananjay will
Is
share the
there any?
contact details. Harsh
Okay.
has shared his contact details. Even will share to you, and you can get in touch with him personally and get all the advice. And yes, if I wish I could take this wonderful session go on and on, but yes, shortness of time, and we have to wrap up this session. And before thanking and bidding to this session, I would like to have few announcements to be presented to the audience. So we have a couple of events upcoming, which I would like you to register. Go on to our social network sites, meetup apps, and register yourself for all these wonderful sessions. For the startups mainly, this was very recommendable. Please go on and register for virtual job fairs, networking events, and compliances, similar compliance and legal advices for the startups. We and there are okay. So we have a business networking event coming up on 26th of September. This is the link. It should be provided in the chat as well. You can register over here to get more insight on the session. Also, we have a mini venture capital masterclass. So startups which are opting to have benefits from venture, please get in, register to this network session on 9th of September. Details will be provided to you in the chat as well. So yes, I thank Harsh for a wonderful session and site and the legal. I truly enjoyed, and thanks to the audience for overwhelming response and queries. I thank you all for having me join this session. We expect you to join in our upcoming sessions as well. Be in touch. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Bobby.
And thank you, my co-host.
Thank you, Harsha. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Audience.